meteor came flying through, some of them would get trapped in the spin of the planets in the gravitational pull, and they would become the rings around the planets. At least 4 planets have ice rings around them. Where did this material come from? The fragments on the planets are rings made of rock and ice. Interesting. Could have happened at the time of the flood. Number 3, as this meteor approached the Earth, or pieces of it approached the Earth, or maybe we just went through the tail, through a debris tail, I don't know. Regardless though, I believe a whole lot of ice was sucked into the North and South Pole because of the Earth's strong magnetic field. Super cold ice is slightly magnetic, and it is easily statically charged. So those are 2 factors that might have sucked it into the North and South Pole, causing it to be dumped on the pole. As the meteor came flying in through space, it broke apart out in space, and the fragments would generally go to the pole. That would cause the Earth to wobble for a few thousand years. You have a spinning object and you're going to dump a bunch of weight on there. If it's slightly off-center, it's going to create the wobble effect. As this ice meteor came flying in, it broke apart and sucked around the poles and dumped on the North and South Pole. Now when you get 300 below zero ice, you're going to freeze the mammoths standing up. This sudden dump of ice caused the crust of the Earth to crack, and the fountains of the great deep were broken open. Water came shooting up to the surface, and the Earth was totally covered by water. Up near the North Pole, they find frozen bobcats, frozen camels. Camels don't live near the North Pole, folks. All sorts of frozen animals. It's not just frozen mammoths. Strange things up there are found frozen. And when they drill through the ice, oftentimes under the ice they find coal. Well, coal is made from plants. This map of National Geographic's South Pole here says they had the Dirty Diamond Mine dug here in 1962, which yielded anthracite coal. Well, since coal is made from plants and there are no plants on Antarctica, we have a problem here. How do you get coal in Antarctica? Admiral Byrd said he reported seeing palm trees under the ice when he got down near the South Pole. Well, palm trees don't grow near the South Pole, folks. We have a hard time getting them to grow in Florida because in North Florida, because it's too cold for palm trees. You sure don't get them to grow at the North Pole. They find thousands of dinosaur fossils found 400 miles from the South Pole. Dinosaurs are found. Dinosaurs live on plants, most of them, and there are no animals down there that have like a dinosaur, no reptiles, that's for sure. Thousands of well-preserved leaves found in Antarctica, this article says. 250 miles from the South Pole. Thousands and thousands of leaves that still retain their original cellular structure. They're pressed, squeezed into layers. There's a scientist had a theory that he thinks the Earth is still being hit by ice meteors. And by the way, it was vindicated several years ago when they noticed there are chunks of ice as big as houses hitting the Earth every day. There are still fragments of ice flying around through space. Now they hit the atmosphere and vaporize and come down in the form of water. But if you look at the Earth, you notice it has 2 North Poles. We have a real North Pole and we have a magnetic North Pole. How many have heard of that before? Your compass points to the magnetic North Pole. Now right here in Missouri, they line up pretty good, so you don't have to worry about, adjusting your compass. But if you lived in Alaska, there's quite a difference between real north and magnetic north. And you'd have to allow for that, especially if you're an airplane pilot and it mattered, which way you're going. This ice age appears to be centered around the magnetic North Pole. So here's what I think might have happened. The mammoths are chomping on their tropical flowers. It was a nice day outside. All of a sudden it began to snow. They had never seen snow before. So one of them said, "Herman, this is peculiar weather we're having here. It's snowing." Ooh, that's cold snow. That's 300 below zero Fahrenheit. Or maybe they used Kelvin or Celsius. I'm not sure what mammoths use. But anyway, he said, "That's cold. Let's get out of here." So they began running around, and the snow got deeper and deeper. And pretty soon they got trapped in snow drifts, standing up. And they couldn't even fall down. Have you ever been in snow so deep you could not even fall over? You ever seen that before? You're stuck standing up. You can't even fall down. And as this snow got deeper and deeper, it began pushing out toward the equator, and it would carve out glacial effects. There were chunks of ice as big as Texas sliding across the countryside at 100 miles an hour, scratching out glacial grooves, which are found all over the northern and southern latitudes of the Earth. These glacial grooves where rocks were slid, sometimes for miles, scratching the rock. And the ice came all the way down to Kansas City, Missouri, and the Earth was totally covered by water, some liquid, some solid. But still water, because that canopy had collapsed. See, when cold air hits regular air, it makes it rain. So the cold spots on the North and South Pole would send out a cold front. You ever open the freezer and see the cold air come flying out, or falling out? That's what probably happened. The cold wave hit the regular air and it rained, collapsing the pre-flood canopy, which completely covered the earth. The Bible says, the fountains of the great deep were broken up and the windows of heaven were opened. If you ever get a chance to read the book of Jasher, somebody sent this to me. Brother, it is amazing reading. You ever seen that book of Jasher? It's referred to twice in the Bible, as it says in the book of Jasher. In Jasher chapter 6, it says, on that day the Lord caused the whole earth to shake, and the sun darkened, and the foundations of the world raged, and the whole earth was moved violently, and the lightning flashed, and the thunder roared, and all the foundations of the earth were broken up. Now, it's an extra biblical book. It shouldn't be part of the Bible, but it's very interesting reading from an ancient source about what the flood was like. Okay, next in the Hovind theory, this dump of ice on the North and South Pole would cause the crust to crack. Spreading ice would carve the glacial effects. It would bury the mammoths, and it would cause the earth to wobble, and it would destroy the pre-flood world. The canopy collapsed. Genesis 9, the Bible says all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. It was a worldwide flood. Did you know if you shrank the earth down to the size of a cue ball, the earth would be smoother and rounder than the cue ball? And if you shrank it down to the size of a 12-inch globe, all of the water in the world would not even fill 1 tablespoon at that scale. I mean, the oceans look huge, but folks, compared to the size of the earth, there's just not much water here. 1 tablespoon to a 12-inch globe is what you would have. Now, Mount Everest is interesting. At the top of Mount Everest, it's covered with seashells, clams. I've got one on the table down there. Petrified clams in the closed position. Now, in the first place, I would like to point out, Mount Everest is a little ways from the beach. Secondly, clams do not climb mountains very well. Thirdly, when a clam dies, it opens right away. You can come to Pensacola, go down to see the beach there, and walk along the beach and pick up a whole trainload of seashells. But you're never going to find a closed pear if it's dead. It'll open right away. The muscle relaxes, and something eats the muscle out. You're lucky to find a matched pear. You never find them closed, unless they're still alive. The only way to get petrified clams in the closed position would be to bury it alive. There are some places where the clams are found petrified in the closed position, and there are layers of them 10 feet thick. Solid petrified clams. Interesting. Genesis 7 says the fountains of the deep were broken up. I think the earth got struck by something, maybe chunks of ice coming in from the North and South Pole, and that caused the earth's crust to crack. And the fountains of the deep went shooting out, and the earth today still has the scars where this happened. The cracks are called the fault lines. As the hot water came shooting out, it would kill all the fish and other things within a certain effective radius. As this water came shooting out along the seams, it's going to erode the sides of the crack and push them away. That's going to let the layer underneath bulge up, making them slide away even faster. So what you would end up with is the bulging effect of the basalt, it's called, lifting up, cracking, explaining the magnetic anomalies, and the surfaces are going to slide backwards. As they slide back, they're going to eventually stop, like pushing a carpet on one end. It's going to wrinkle up at the wall at the other end. And the wrinkled mountains we find all over the world indicate they were compressed from the end, not lifted up from underneath. It was a compression going right to left. Interesting. Why do we have these mountains like that? And this hot water shooting out from inside the earth would kill the diatoms. Diatoms are itty-bitty glass-bodied critters that live in the ocean. They make their body out of glass, silica. When they die, the body falls to the bottom. And then the kids fall to the bottom, and the grandkids and the great-grandkids. They say it takes about 1,000 years to get an inch of diatoms because they are extremely tiny. Under a microscope, they're beautiful, but they're really tiny. When this stuff dries out, they call it diatomaceous earth. Has anybody ever heard of diatomaceous earth before? They use it for all sorts of things. It's used for swimming pool filters, detergents, fertilizers, soundproofing, kitty litter. You know the white rocks you put out for the cat to go potty on? That's diatomaceous earth. Oil dry. When you spill oil on your driveway, drop out diatomaceous earth crystals. It soaks the oil right up. It's used for all sorts of things. Well, the largest diatomaceous earth quarry that I'm aware of is in Southern California. Lompoc, California is right smack on top of the San Andreas Fault. And right there, the diatomaceous earth is 1,500 feet thick in places. I've been to see the quarry, talked to people that work there, took quite a tour of that place. In 1976, they were digging for diatomaceous earth, just scooping it out